pleasure of facilitating our steering group with our young people. And I'm really delighted that Lucy, one of our young people who's been part of that steering group, is going to co-host today's webinar today. So Lucy, I guess I'll hand over for you to tell everyone a bit about yourself, and then are you able to kick us off?
Yes, yeah, thank you, James. Hi, so I'm Lucy. I'm a final year psychology student at the University of York. And I was really keen to take part in this steering group project because I know just how prevalent mental health can be, especially within younger people. And so it's really encouraging that you're all here today and so willing to tackle this problem with us and help create change. So before we start, we just thought we'd cover today's outcomes and what we hope to achieve together. So we hope that you'll end this webinar with a greater understanding of the relationship between physical activity and mental health, especially within the children and the young people that you work with. We hope that you'll leave this session more confident in engaging in conversations with young people about how they're feeling, particularly knowing when and how to appropriately signpost them to a range of support options. And we'll also share our key insights from the project with you, and we hope that you'll be encouraged from these to do even more to include young people and empower them within your work. So as a young person and a psychology student, I unfortunately know just how much of an impact mental health can have on every aspect of our lives, both through my own personal experiences and through the experiences of people around me. In 2017, 1 in 9 children and young people had a mental health problem. But now just 1 in 6 will experience a mental health problem. Half of young people have experienced trauma, which makes them twice as likely to develop mental health problems later in their lives. So this crisis in young people's mental health was already growing fast enough without the additional stress of the pandemic. And Paddy is now going to share an example of how the pandemic has had an impact on his own mental health. So Paddy, what kind of an impact has the pandemic had on your well-being?
Thank you, Lucy. Yeah, it had a big effect on my mental well-being, mainly because the whole routine and structure of my day just went out the window during the lockdown, and I found it very hard to actually get out and do sports and that kind of thing because I played rugby. So that's kind of difficult during the pandemic, and then the actual kind of anxiety around getting COVID and passing it on made going out difficult. And also as a man in a male kind of dominated sport, it's very difficult to know if you can reach out, because what people don't realize is everybody's got mental health, like physical health. So it's an issue that affects everybody.
Wow, some really powerful words there, Paddy, and thanks so much for sharing that. Paddy's one of our young people that has been part of our steering group throughout, and we'll hear from River, Elsa and Anna also later today. We're sharing some of their lived experience, and we'll also hopefully hear from Paddy and the others on a film that we'll be launching later on in the webinar. So I think from Paddy's words, hopefully what you can take is that children and young people is such an important audience for Mind. And because of this growing mental health crisis, it's one of Mind's 3 strategic priority audiences. Within our physical activity team, it's why we really wanted to look at why the sport workforce could help and support young people's mental health within physical activity. So what do we know already? Well, we've gone through a thoughtful, steady process to understand the contribution that physical activity can play in supporting young people's mental health, especially as we know that there's a less of an evidence base around this audience than in contrast to the adult population. However, we do know that studies exist and they show that exercise has a positive impact on young people's mental health as a prevention and as a treatment. For instance, there's evidence that it can lower the risk of depression by up to 30%. However, physical activity-based mental health support isn't always appropriate, especially for young people struggling with motivation or who don't feel confident participating in sports. It's really about the right activity at the right time in the right environment. And physical activity should be seen alongside talking therapies, medication, and wider lifestyle changes. But it is clear there's a correlation between lower activity levels and increased risks of mental health problems. From interviews with young people, we know that some of them see physical activity as a short-term solution. So young people know that physical activity is good for them, but they need help experiencing the mental health benefits by focusing on how it feels. And those working with young people on the call today have a real role to play in this. So as we've mentioned, mine's been undertaking a 12-month pilot project since the beginning of April 2021. From the outset, we wanted to place co-production at the heart of the process. When we're talking about co-production, what we mean is designing something by sharing the decision-making and giving everyone an equal say. Young people, hopefully, as you'll see today, have been heavily involved in this project from the outset and across multiple different steering group sessions. They've provided key insights on a range of questions, such as how physical activity can make them feel, all the way through to how coaches and the workforce can support their mental health within physical activity sessions. But we've also done a huge amount of work with partners and used surveys and focus groups to better understand what forms of support the coaching workforce and you yourselves would like to access. On the back of the evidence base we've built, we've then developed a number of resources to upskill anyone delivering physical activity sessions to young people. So Lucy's now probably got the hard task, I guess, of summarising all the kind of amazing feedback and insights that our young people have discussed over the course of the project. So over to you, Lucy.
Yeah, thank you, James. So as a steering group, we talked about a lot of different things, but we've tried to condense them down into what we thought was most important to share with sports coaches to help encourage young people with their mental health and well-being. So firstly, we felt that it was really important to be willing to engage in conversations with young people about their well-being, because even just one single conversation can really make a huge difference. And so many young people are apprehensive to reach out for help. And so knowing just how to start these conversations is really useful. We also spoke about the importance of having appropriate knowledge surrounding young people and their mental health. So thinking about the importance of working with the whole young person rather than just their physical activity, especially in coaching. So when you have the right knowledge, you have a lot more confidence, and this makes talking to young people a lot easier. Knowing how to correctly signpost people is also really important in getting them the help that they need. So as young people, we really like to be able to choose the support services that are right for us. And so being presented with options helps the process of us getting support. Finally, we also thought that it was essential to consider the issues that young people are facing today, especially those that might not have been quite as prevalent even 10 years ago. So things like heightened body image and social media. And this is really important in understanding what young people are going through in a really sensitive way. And so making young people more willing to engage in conversations about their well-being with you. So a young person from Mind's audience research said the following: I don't really talk to my friends or family about my problems. I sometimes speak to my football coach if things are getting too much. I think this really just highlights how important it is to upskill the coaching workforce, because you're one of many groups that are working with children and young people, and it's so important to know what to do if a young person turns to you when things are getting too much for them. And you don't have to be a mental health expert to be able to listen to them and to provide support.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Lucy. So many insights, and yeah, a brilliant quote there to show the importance of this work. So over the past year, not only have we been working with young people, like I said, we've gained a great deal of insight from the coaching sector. So our survey, which we ran last summer, explored the confidence, awareness and understanding levels of individuals working or volunteering with young people. And like I say, that's an age group from 11 up to 25. We found from the survey that coaches have less of an understanding around young people's mental health in comparison to mental health in general, although a lot of the feedback was really positive and we're seeing increasing awareness levels. Individuals also indicated that they're most confident at identifying when a participant may be upset or stressed. In contrast, though, confidence levels dropped off in terms of knowing where to signpost a young person to who's experiencing a mental health problem. And in addition, it was clear that the sector lacks a level of confidence and awareness of what to do in a mental health crisis situation, which is when a person or individual feels at breaking point and needs urgent help. Delving into this a little bit deeper, we then explored these biggest challenges and concerns, and 5 key themes really came out strongest from the survey and from the focus groups that we ran. Firstly, knowing where to signpost to support. So what we've done is we've focused on producing resources, both physical and online, that map out the national and local organisations, so you can present a range of options to young people to really empower them to choose if and how they want to access support. Secondly, the survey and the sector conveyed a real fear around not giving the right advice or saying the wrong thing. Now, it's really important that we stress we don't expect everyone to be a mental health expert, and it's certainly not a coach's role to diagnose mental health problems within a session. However, as has been highlighted from the quote that Lucy's just read out, young people may turn to someone delivering a physical activity session, whether that be a coach or volunteer. And it's really important those individuals are open to listening, because that can make a huge difference to our young people. Our research has also highlighted that there was a clear concern around long waiting lists for some support services and a general lack of capacity within external support services. And I know many people listening today may be able to recognise this within their own localities. So to tackle this, what we'd really encourage you to do more of is to explore those local support options. And that's been suggested by many of our coaches and young people. So for instance, the Hub of Hope and Anna Freud Centre provide fantastic online databases where you can filter and search by your location or postcode and find out about the services in your local area. We'll post the links in the chat right now, and please do go check out those after the session. Fourth, what's come out of the feedback is that the sector really wants greater guidance on how to practically adapt sessions. So our young people have been great in putting forward different examples of how to do this. But we also know there's a huge wide range of amazing good practice happening across the sector. So we'd ask you to pop any suggestions that you have about how you can adapt a session and involve people with experiencing or at risk of experiencing mental health problems. And let us know kind of what you've done within your own sports settings. So please do pop that in the chat now, or email us with the activities after this session, as we really want to build up a bank of good practice across the sector so we can share this and highlight it to upskill others. Finally, there was a concern from the sector that young people often struggle to communicate how they're feeling. I think on the back of this, what we've done is we've created guidance around how to spot the signs of how someone might need support, and also provided some conversation starters to help you to be able to check in with a young person. But I think for me personally, what's become even more apparent throughout the whole project about how important it is to empower young people to speak about this and to discuss how they're feeling. So over to Lucy to, I guess, share how we've done some of this.
So one thing we've done as part of our steering group, we held many discussions on our own lived experiences of mental health, especially within the sporting sector. And together we produced this short film which incorporates all of our ideas. So Paddy, River and Elsa in this film offer examples of how coaches can spot the signs of a mental health problem and how they can adapt their responses to the different needs of individuals to support their well-being. So we hope you enjoy watching this as much as we enjoyed making it.
Being involved in any sort of physical activity is so important for my mental well-being. I think the two things are intrinsically linked.
I'm not focusing on anything else. I can leave the day behind me, and the anxiety and the stresses just kind of leave me.
Mental health for me means creating balance. So for example, things like physical activity and being able to get outside is really important and valuable as a young person.
Everyone has mental health. It's something that we all have to learn to manage. When I'm struggling, I start to withdraw socially, and when I'm normally quite extroverted and outgoing, that's quite obvious. Whereas some people will still have a smile on their face, they'll still be laughing, and it's not very easy to spot.
When I'm at a lower point, I tend to go quite quiet, and it's kind of all my emotions just build up in my head till they overflow into like kind of a panic attack, so I can get quite ill. I think a coach can have a big role to play in like helping ease anxiety. It's all about communication. If they understand how you feel and how you're feeling that day, then they can adapt the session for you, maybe ask you if you need a break, check in with you, offer you some one-to-one support.
I think it's important for coaches to adapt to people's individual needs. So for example, if you've got someone who's maybe a bit quieter than others, making sure that your activities aren't about necessarily being really big and loud, but are including that person in a really mindful way.
To create a supportive environment, knowledge is a key factor. It would be wonderful if coaches could try to expand their knowledge about issues that are affecting young people today, such as racism, homophobia, but also body image and issues that come with social media. And it will make them more confident to be able to listen and find solutions together if they really understand.
I think a coach can spot somebody who's struggling with their mental health. They're acting probably differently to usual, whether they might be quieter. Some people might mask their mental health by trying to be a bit louder, putting on a persona, but they will be different to how they usually are. When I'm at my low point, I value just the coach being honest and me being able to be honest with the coach.
Checking in regularly is important, because even just asking, are you okay, do you need to talk, can open the door for someone to be able to walk through and have that discussion, because without someone asking, they won't have the confidence to just start the conversation themselves.
I think a coach can do a lot to really promote good well-being. A break's really important during a session because it just allows you to gather your feelings when nobody else is really around, complimenting you even if you're doing the same thing as you do usually, and it's just expected of you. By just shouting positive feedback at you can really give you a boost.
I am someone who really struggles to verbally communicate and to talk. So things like physical activity, particularly dance, has given me, in some cases, a huge lifeline to just be able to say what I want to say, but without using words. I always felt growing up that there was a lot of misunderstanding around mental health, particularly in an outside of school setting. So I think if the adults I'd been engaging with then had understood it a bit better or had some more resources to support them, then it would have made a huge difference. But I'm doing well now.
So you'll be able to find this film on Mind's webpage alongside a British Sign Language adaptation if you want to watch it again or share it on. And a shorter social media edit of the film is also underway, so that will be rolled out by Mind in the upcoming months, along with some of the further resources that we've developed together as a steering group. So this is another resource that we've contributed to, and this is an infographic which contains the top tips that we feel it's really important for coaches to know in order to support good well-being within physical activity. So these graphics can be downloaded and accessed again from Mind's new dedicated webpage. And we focused our top tips around the slightly cheesy acronym of young people, highlighting, as James mentioned earlier, the knowledge gap within the coaching workforce between coaches' knowledge of mental health and coaches' knowledge of mental health within young people. So we highlight within this infographic the importance of remaining young person focused, being attentive and observing the behaviour of those you oversee, understanding the issues that young people face and how these issues affect mental health, asking non-judgmental questions, and also giving encouragement to children and young people. So from this page of the infographic, the top tip that I would choose to highlight falls under the making sessions young people focused. So this could be, for example, by setting targets. Instead of you setting targets for young people, you could allow them to set their own individual goals, which provides a chance for them to more deeply reflect on their own personal progress and feel like they're making progress, which in turn encourages and motivates the young person and also supports their well-being. So Anna, another member of our steering group, is now going to share her insight into sports coaching with young people and their mental health.
Yeah, thanks, Lucy. Yeah, I think when supporting young people, like as Lucy said, it's so important for that to be personalised and non-judgmental and coming from like a really caring place. Both like, I think this both applies to sort of within the sessions, so sort of from personalised exercises, sort of non-judgmentally shared for every like fitness level, to also kind of supportive conversations and check-ins with people after sessions. So I say my top tips for sort of those check-ins is sort of using open questions, like really helps broaden the conversation, and allows the young person to steer that conversation as well. And obviously it's particularly important that these questions are non-judgmental, so people feel like they can actually share what's going on for them. And promoting a range of options when signposting really helps empower young people so that they can feel in control, especially like when they might not have that much control over other aspects of their lives. You know, in general, no one really likes being told what to do, especially if that isn't an option that you particularly like or would have chosen for yourself. And finally, I feel like I can't stress the importance of following up with people enough, especially if you've signposted someone somewhere else. Just checking in to see how it went is really helpful. It's been so meaningful for me when people have checked in with me again later, and it really shows that you care, and that the first conversation wasn't just a tick box exercise to get you to go somewhere else, and that you've really held them in mind, and doing that like really makes all of the difference when you're struggling.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing that, Anna. So our acronym continues on this next page, with the other half detailing the importance of coaching sessions being personalised, engaging, open, full of praise and opportunities to learn, and of course, most importantly, being enjoyable. So this involves tailoring sessions to be fun for everyone and attending to mental health within your young people as well as physical health. So Elsa, why do you think it's so important for coaches to attend to mental health and to open up these conversations?
Thank you. Yeah, so something key which really came up in a lot of our conversations was about highlighting and being aware of how young people are really feeling when engaging in particular activities. And as a coach, kind of creating a space accordingly so that everybody feels included. I mentioned a few kind of examples of that in the video. But I think just creating a really open environment where the conversation around mental health is normalised, and so young people are feeling less alienated and more reassured that it's a safe space to feel however they feel. And I guess one of the examples that comes to mind, again, I mentioned it in the video, is my relationship with dance as a teenager and how much that helped me as somebody who was bullied at school and really didn't feel safe there and didn't feel comfortable there or able to be herself at all. To be able to have a space outside of school where I could go and express myself, and I knew that my teacher there was somebody that I could talk to and somebody that encouraged me and empowered me to use that space to express myself. So sometimes it wasn't necessarily the conversation we had. Like I also said in the video, I really struggled to like verbally communicate and explain how I feel. And that's not necessarily because I don't want to, or I feel embarrassed by it, but more I just don't know how to, or how to find the words. And so for a coach or a teacher to create an environment and create a space where the young person can really feel like they can just be themselves and they can express themselves and just feel really comfortable and able to approach you if they need to. That's a really powerful thing and shouldn't at all be underestimated, because obviously the conversations are really important and we focus a lot on them. But I think just really giving young people, really empowering us to own this space and feel in control and so I think overall just acknowledging when young people are doing their best, knowing that can be different on different days. I'm sure you'll all agree that we
we all have mental health, and that's really important to remember, because it means that we all have good days and we all have bad days and everything in the middle. So just remembering that people's bests can be different every day, and that's totally okay, and kind of acknowledging that, and celebrating what a young person can give in each session or class. And yeah, just not underestimating the kind of importance of really listening to a young person, understanding their needs, and structuring sessions according to their individual needs, and yeah, encouraging them to do their best. I think the more inclusive and open a space feels, the more likely young people are to participate in a positive way and really feel the benefits of it.
That's amazing, Elsa. Some amazing insights there, and I think kind of what you said about focusing on the feeling is so key. I know, kind of harking back to many of our steering group meetings, I think we ended up doing all sorts of dance moves as icebreakers to express our feelings, and I must admit I was far worse than many of you at it. But even kind of what we've done at the start of sessions is use or ask our young people to describe how they're feeling using one word. Or we've used kind of emojis, or even asked them to share a song about how that's making them feel or how they're feeling that day. I think those really small ways of kind of changing the conversation, but getting young people talking about their thoughts and feelings is so powerful and so important. So thanks again for sharing that, Elsa and Anna. That was really, really important insights. So I guess building on kind of the graphic you've just seen around those top tips, we've also produced a physical handbook for coaches. So out of our focus groups, coaches told us that they wanted this physical resource that they can refer back to before, during, and then also after a session. Our handbook itself can kind of fit in a pocket or a lanyard, and it includes a wide range of information, including examples of how to spot the signs, how to check in, and also then how to follow up. I think we know as a team, and having worked across the sector, that knowledge and understanding levels massively vary. Some of you will have coached young people for many years, and others will be volunteering once a month, or may even just be going into volunteering for the first time. So what we've done with our physical handbook is we've included QR codes, which can be easily scanned using a phone, so that you can review information and access more information online, whether that be on your way to a session or at home. And also, if you're not down to using QR codes, all the links are available on our new webpage. The booklets and links itself do provide this extra detailed information. And I think what's been highlighted by young people, and they've encouraged you to do, is learn more about the issues that they're facing. So please do go online and learn about mental health problems or the symptoms that they experience. The handbook then moves on to encourage the workforce to focus on spotting changes in a young person's behaviour. And we'd really encourage you, when delivering sessions, to focus on these thoughts and feelings. For example, as hopefully you can see on the screen, we want you to focus on that change in behaviour, kind of people appearing lower in energy. And we recognise that every day someone will face new challenges, but it's important to see this change over time. The discrete resource can also then be used when having a conversation with a young person. So what we've done is we've included some conversation starters and examples of how to signpost to support options. As I think Anna mentioned earlier, using non-judgmental questions is really, really key. And you can also make them time-bound. So for instance, asking a young person, how have you felt in the last few days? Or how have you felt in the last few weeks? That really encourages them to check in with themselves and to reflect on that time period. But I think it's important to say that following a conversation, we really would encourage you to present those different signposting options to a young person. And the signposting resource in this handbook really maps out how best to do this. As we've touched on earlier, we know that coaches want to know more about also how to access those local support services to navigate the challenges with pressures and waiting lists of national support services. So we've included in the resource itself those links to the Anna Freud Centre and also the Hub of Hope database. And that's actually followed by a page in the handbook where we want clubs and coaches to write down those local support options. so you have them to hand if you're having a conversation with a young person. We've also outlined a number of different national support services, but we realise there are so many out there doing fantastic work and providing that bespoke support for young people. So please do again head to our website, which has a link to a whole range of different children and young people's support services. Like I said, there's so much information in this handbook, and these snapshots on the slides are just a few examples of the pages. For example, we've also included guidance on what to do if a young person's experiencing a mental health crisis. And again, that's when they're at breaking point. It's really important that you get them the urgent help that they need, but also stay with them if they aren't safe. We've also included information on how to look after your own well-being, and there's quite a few pages on this, but also how to access support for yourself. We know supporting a young person can be incredibly rewarding, but also it can be overwhelming at times. For example, in the same way that if we're on an aeroplane in an emergency, we're told to put on our own oxygen mask first, it's really important that you look after yourself first and prioritise your own well-being. So please do remember that. And also, if you're listening to this call now and do need support, there's information on Mind's website about how to access that. There's lots more information on our handbook online, and we'll send the links out in a minute. So please do make sure you check it out and also find out how to access one for your organisation. I know that we've spoken a huge amount about co-production during this session, and as we mentioned before, that's how we design something, by sharing decision-making and giving everyone an equal say. So I thought before we close and kind of move on to a bit of a question and answer session, we thought it'd be really useful to hear how our young people have found being involved in co-producing resources. So Lucy, given that you're co-hosting today, I wondered if you wanted to share kind of what you found your experience like of being involved in a steering group since kind of the start of this 12-month pilot project, how you found kind of being involved in producing resources and the impact that it's had on you.
Yeah, so I think it's been a really positive experience, and it's really helped me think more about my own experiences and how I've processed things. And I know I speak for the whole of our steering group when I say this, but we've really been so grateful for Mind, for the platform that they've given us to share our own experiences and to shape this project to help other young people in ways that we wish we could have been helped when we were in those positions. And so this really wouldn't have been possible without the use of co-production and people like James listening to our voices. So River is now going to share some more on their thoughts about why it's so important to include young people in their projects.
Thanks, Lucy. And yeah, I'd reiterate that point. I think we've all felt very grateful to Mind for the platform and for creating space for young people from all backgrounds to come together. And it's really important to remember that there are so many generational gaps as society changes and progresses. So if we want to empower young people and make a real impact, we must first give them that platform and give them a voice to speak on their experiences. So involving a diverse group of young people in co-production ensures that all the outcomes are going to be suitable for the demographic as a whole, not just representing a particular type of young person. And unfortunately, because of our differences as young people, a lot of us have experienced bullying and our mental health has been significantly impacted or affected by not just individual things, but systemic societal issues, such as I mentioned in the video, racism, homophobia, transphobia, sexism, ableism, fat phobia, the list goes on and on and on. So it's really important that we pay attention to this, and we want coaches to be aware of these issues and to have the knowledge so that they can also be empowered to be able to help young people. We're also particularly vulnerable to the prevalence of social media. We are constantly subject to pressure to meet these impossible standards, such as to be happy, to be beautiful, successful, healthy, productive, available. And this is 24/7. So we are always exhausted and our mental health is always suffering. In my personal experience,
I'm queer, I'm non-binary, I'm autistic. So these intersectional identities play a big role in my experience with mental health. And I feel that by working with Mind, I've been able to bring to the table some of the struggles that young people in the LGBTQIA+ community have experienced or faced day to day. Although my experiences as an individual won't represent the community as a whole, we can begin to address the mental health needs of this community. And the same applies to being autistic. I have first-hand experience of the challenges autistic people face as young people in a society that is designed to accommodate neurotypical people and not neurodivergent people. And by creating this space to share young people's lived experiences, solutions are going to inevitably be more targeted to the everyday struggles that we face, rather than based on assumptions or previous data that might have been gathered from a very particular subgroup. So overall, times are always changing. As I said before, there are generational gaps. We need to adapt, and our approach to mental health needs to change along with it. And it's been a pleasure to work with Mind, as I'm sure all of us can agree. Coming together from different experiences, being able to listen to each other and be compassionate and strive for change and make the world a better place, as we always say, but it really does start with listening to each other and creating a space. So thank you, Mind, for doing that, and we hope that this continues.
Oh, River, thanks for your kind words there, and some really, really important kind of conversations that you've started there. I think I've certainly learned a huge amount about the importance of co-production involving young people throughout this process, and I've kind of been in awe of kind of the contributions that you've all made. And I hope kind of to those listening today that you too have learned something from this, that you've taken kind of away the importance of that meaningful co-production involving young people at every step of that decision-making process, and actually then feeding back the difference that they've made, looking back at the resources and kind of champion the work that they've been involved in. If you do want to find out more about how to then, meaningfully involve people with lived experience within your own organisations, whether that be planning sessions and kind of developing session plans for young people, whether that be planning wider projects, or actually thinking about something that you might want to achieve in a co-production process, please do check out our toolkit on lived experience engagement. It's one of 10 fantastic toolkits on our resources page of our physical activity website. And Julie's going to kindly post the link in the chat to that toolkit, which is all about lived experience engagement. So I'd really recommend taking a look at that, and also getting in touch via email if you want to know more about how to involve young people in your work. So before we stop for a bit of a question and answer opportunity, and please do start posting any questions that you may have about our resources, about our work with young people, or our work next in the chat. I just wanted to kind of say briefly kind of what's next for us as a team and as an organisation. I think it's great, and I'm really pleased to say that this year-long pilot project is very much just the beginning of our work. We're still currently firming up our plans with funders, but we will be continuing our work with partners to support different organisations working with young people. For example, I'm really excited to say that we're looking at supporting a PhD study on a trauma-informed approach to physical activity, specifically looking at young people. So really watch that space for this, and do stay in touch. As I think we've mentioned in the chat, and I've seen kind of a few questions about this, the film itself, our resources, and all the links that we've been sharing are going to be on our new webpage, and Julie's kind of going to post that in the chat again. We'll make sure to circulate the slides from today's presentation to you in a follow-up email, and do stay in touch and keep that conversation going. Our email as a team is sport@mind.org.uk. And our physical activity pages can be accessed by going to mind.org.uk/sport. That's on the screen, and also hopefully many of you have accessed some of our resources before. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and just stop for kind of a short question and answer session. I'm going to bring up the chat and kind of It'd be great to hear kind of how you found this presentation, what you thought of our resources. If you've got any questions around how you can support young people within your organisation. So I'll keep an eye on the chat. I know it's always a bit of a difficult one posting a question so quickly, but please do kind of engage with the chat and let us know if you've got any questions. And hopefully myself, or even potentially some of our young people, can address those questions. I can see a few. So Graham, you've asked a great question about partnering with Mind on different programs. I think kind of to get a better understanding of that, I think the best thing to do is to say to get in touch. So our sport@mind.org.uk inbox is probably the best place to go to if you're looking to access kind of our support. I must say we're a small team with a limited capacity, but I think to deliver kind of moving forward, we're looking to work with various different organisations that we can increase the impact and reach of this project. So please get in touch with kind of maybe a specific question about kind of what you want to access support with, and we'll definitely pick up that conversation and look to offer kind of our resources to you. And again, many of that information is on our website, so yeah, do get in touch via our support inbox. There's a lot of praise for all our young people, and kind of River also for your kind of point at the end about your lived experience. So just wanted to highlight that as maybe we give people just a second more to offer some contributions in the chat. Paddy, I know kind of you earlier on were touching on kind of coming at it from a slightly younger angle. Obviously kind of you're still at school, and I know kind of speaking to you at the filming day, discussing mental health as a young individual, but also as a young man is a challenge within your rugby community. I was wondering if you wanted to share another line or two about how you found the experience about speaking out and kind of why you'd encourage sports organisations to work with young people to do that.
Yeah, thank you, James. It's been really empowering to kind of speak out about it, because as like a young man who is kind of comfortable sharing emotions, you meet a lot of kind of backlash from both sports and outside of sports. So it can be really hard to kind of to share and know when you can share your experiences. But I think it's really important for like coaches and sports teams as a whole to just be so welcoming and not like, and kind of stamp out kind of if there's any making fun of kind of bullying or anything about mental health, because the more and more people you get speaking out about it, there's probably a lot of people in each and every team. Well, 1 in 6 people, like children, experience mental health problems. So if you look at your team, then there's more than likely going to be people in there with mental health problems. So if you can create a really safe environment for people sharing their like experiences, it can be really helpful. Just one conversation can just change the way people look at the world.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Paddy. Yeah, again, kind of it is just starting that conversation. Hopefully we've been able to do that today. There's quite a few questions coming through in the chat. I'll try and pick them up as and when I see them. There was a question about specific physical activity sessions being advertised that are developed and designed to just specifically help young people with mental health problems, and the levels of engagement with this. I think, Rob, kind of you asked that in the chat. In terms of how we adapt sessions and specific sessions, I think even on this call, we've got a wide number of different organisations that deliver sessions specifically for young people. And there's a huge amount going on. I think Emily's actually just posted in the chat about what she's doing. And I think as an organisation, we're really keen to capture this more. And we're really keen to learn from the sector about what you're doing, how you practically adapt your sessions. And as mentioned, I think moving forward, what we'd really like to do is start bringing together kind of a good practice of how to adapt a session plan, how to kind of involve people with lived experience or people experiencing mental health problems. So yeah, do get in touch if you are kind of running those sessions within your own community, and please do share any top tips in the chat as well. As I just filter through the questions, there was a question around, oh, okay, a question to our young people. Elsa, I don't know if so I've got you on the top of my screen. If you minded answering a question just about what you enjoyed most about being part of the steering group, obviously, and also maybe what you think organisations, or why you think it's important for organisations to maybe trial working with kind of advisory boards or young people more as part of that advisory role, but meaningful engagement.
Sure. I think kind of what's already been said, in a way of just feeling like we're being listened to, and that our experiences are like really matter and are being taken into account when creating resources like this. I sit on a lot of youth panels and do a lot of work with charities around young people's mental health, and often, and what always strikes me about them is how valued young people are made to feel. So it's not like, I think often it can feel like young people are being talked about rather than being included in the conversation. And that was something I think came out really strongly in our final kind of steering group meeting. So yeah, and what was the second part? Sorry, what can people?
Yeah, no, do you know what? I think you probably answered it there.
Okay,
That was great. Around kind of that meaningful engagement, and hopefully that's a takeaway for everyone. I'm just now filtering through more questions. Samantha Robson asked, what do you think is the best way to educate coaches or organisations on the barriers young people face now? I'll come to you in a minute, River. But in terms of that question, I think there's a huge education piece that we can all do across the sector. I think as an organisation, we know that we can't do it alone, and hopefully today's webinar has been an inspiration for going out there and reaching various different coaches and kind of the workforce. We as an organisation feed into a number of different projects. We're part of the Children's Coaching Collaborative, and I know that over the course of the next year, they're going to be working to hopefully continue to support the kind of coaching workforce. But also we work with a number of partners to do it. So we're heavily involved with UK Coaching, and I know Sported have also played a huge role in promoting this opportunity. But I think we need to do more to reach the kind of far reaches of the country and the UK in terms of our support with this education piece. So we're going to be looking over the next 3 years to potentially support the education sector. So those that are training as PE teachers, or those that are training to deliver coaching, and how we can embed some of these resources, maybe our film, our tips, or kind of those that are put forward by young people to help upskill the sector in terms of what's important and what they need to be considering when they're supporting young people and supporting young people's mental health. I'll probably just take one more question, but River, did you want to just come into an earlier point? Go for it.
Yeah, I just wanted to also address Samantha's question. I think with coaches, don't be afraid to just ask your team or your students that you're working with, like, what are you struggling with? Because I think sometimes we sort of want to go online to find resources, but sometimes hearing it directly from young people, what their experiences are, is more effective. And I think sometimes we can get resources online, but the people you're working with day to day might have more particular individual experiences that you just need to know about. So don't be afraid to ask. If they feel comfortable sharing, and creating a safe space is also important. And also, as Elsa mentioned, like speaking on various panels and things, there are so many young people with lived experience who speak on panels, who go to schools and do speeches and workshops. So just, Google, have a look. There's so much out there. I work with an amazing organisation called We Create Space, which is for LGBTQIA people, not necessarily just young people, but people of all ages who've got different experiences. And we do panels, workshops with companies, organisations, education. So just have a look out there and don't be afraid to ask people what their experiences are, because we can always learn from someone.
Thanks, River. That's a really, really valuable contribution, and couldn't put it better myself. I'll just address one final question. I know that there's been many more flooding through the chat, and just to say, any questions that we've not answered, we'll address it via email. And if it's not addressed via email, please do get in touch, because we want to continue this conversation. The final question, just from Liz, around do you have any guidance for organisations like mine that could share resources for our networks? We work with 100,000 young people every year and are on a mission to provide good mental health resources to teachers and tutors that we work with for the benefit of young people. I think firstly to say, Liz, that's fantastic that you're doing that. We know there is so much good information out there, and hopefully some of these resources bring a bit of that together, but also we know that alone we can't solve this problem. So yeah, do obviously share these resources, but also happy to work with you to point you in the direction of others that may be relevant. And as we continue into the next stages of our young people's work, hopefully we can work with partners to provide that key information in a really succinct way so that you can access it, but also share it on with your organisations and also the coaches that you're working with. I hope that addresses that and how we'll disseminate the information. I'm just conscious of time. I know everyone will need a bit of a break over lunch, and we've really valued having so many people join us on the call today. Before I do close, I just wanted to share one final slide and wrap up the session, if that's all right. And that's very much just a thank you and just touching on a few different aspects that we've spoken about today. Like I said, we will be addressing any questions that haven't been mentioned after the session by email, and we'll also be communicating how to access these resources. If you haven't seen the links already, they're going to be on our website, but please do make sure you're accessing the video, and we'll send that around in the email. We've also just posted a feedback form in the chat, and we're always keen to learn more and learn about how you found today's webinar, but also how you found our whole webinar series. So please do take the time to fill it out. There's a really short form. It's 2 to 3 minutes, and we'd really value your feedback. We'll also again send that around in the email. But before I close, I do think it was really important to thank some people that have been involved in the last year of this pilot project. So firstly, I'd like to thank our external advisory group. So they've played a huge role in shaping and supporting this project. So Sean Kitson, who was previously at Sport England, Heather Douglas at UK Coaching, and Debbie and Kyle, who have led and provided support from our regional network hubs. Thank you so much for the support you've played. Secondly, a real thank you to the coaches that have been involved in this and the volunteers that have continued to provide feedback, whether that be during our survey, through our focus groups, or through the conversations we've shared from you getting in touch with us. I think next, and probably almost most importantly, I'd really like to thank the young people that have been involved in this. It's been really actually moving to hear how much of an effect that being involved in this project has had on your mental health. But also we've really valued the contributions that you've had to make. So thank you to our whole steering group, but also to Paddy, Elsa, Anna and River for your contributions today. And a big thank you also to Lucy for co-hosting alongside me. You spoke so well, and I think it's a real pleasure to share this with the sector. So thanks for your contributions. And finally, I just wanted to thank you those that are listening and attending today. We're really excited to continue this work within the area of young people, and we want to continue broadening our reach around supporting the sector and supporting young people. So please do stay in touch. This is very much the start of a journey, and please do make the most of our resources which are online and we'll share after this webinar. Make sure you look after yourselves today. Hopefully you've taken something from this, and please do go on a walk or reflect on the session after by having a stretch and taking a break. We hope you have a great rest of the day, and yeah, just thank you so much for attending. We've really enjoyed presenting this to you, and we hope you've taken something from the session. So enjoy the rest of the day, and thanks very much for coming. Cheers.